Hi there, and welcome back to the History of Fleetwood Mac. I'm Anita, and today we're going to get into part 6 of my books, and still not in a perfect order, but about as good as it's going to be for 5 parts already and six onward, as good as it's going to get. So the next one I'm going to start off with is one that came out in I think 2000, the year 2000, and it was kind of a combination book that was in a lot of record stores, and that is 20th Century Rock and Roll Women in Rock, which was a great compilation book. Stevie on the cover, which great selling point, right? Don't know if you can still get this book. I imagine you probably could. There is pretty sure in the back here. There is a www.c as in cat, G as in George, publishing.com if anybody wants to look for it. It's a cool little book to have. It doesn't really mention, which I'll show you in a second. It has a ton of great artists in here. I don't think it's in any particular order. Stevie Nicks gets, and she's 36. But what was kind of a bummer is that they mentioned Christine McVie, but really in passing. Stevie definitely gets more of the main spot, but Christine does get a photo in here with Stevie. So the Christine and Stevie photo is shown. They have a ton of great people in here. There's Debbie Harry. I'm happy because Susie and the Banshees are in here. Susie Sue, I should say. And then the portion on Stevie is... So it's kind of almost 3/4 of a page, a whole page, 2 pages more. Then page, and then just a little bit at the end with a small discography, which goes up until the dance. So yeah, this had to come out in 2000. Doesn't say, to be honest with you, but definitely after the dance. And then on the back, then there's a little bit about Christine McVie's kind of like honorable mentions or something kind of along those lines. And I don't know, I guess in a magazine or something like that, they had put Stevie Nicks and Christine McVie together as the women of Fleetwood Mac, and I kind of almost wish they'd done that. I mean, Christine got a part, and I'm grateful. There's another picture with Stevie. But I think as a whole, and they did show her work as well, so that's kind of cool. But if you like women who rock in general, and then the additional bonus of Stevie, I mean, Hart's in here, Debbie Harry, Tina Turner, Annie DeFranco, Courtney Love, Kate Bush, whole segment on Kate, Bjork. I mean, I don't think there's any really country-ish. Pardon me. Not really. There's some girl groups in here, but there's a lot of, rock, a little alternative pop, Madonna, Cyndi Lauper, all that kind of stuff. Cher, Tori Amos. It's just a great book full of women in rock. So definitely one of the recommended ones, though not specifically a Stevie or Fleetwood Mac biography. On that note, coming up to a Stevie Fleetwood Mac biography, we have one that was released in 2000 as well. You know what? This one wasn't terrible. Again, it is another, I don't want to call it a fluff piece. It's a terrible word and thing. And again, I think in the third video, it started dawning on me that anybody who writes a book is exactly, I mean, it really just kind of hit me that it's no better or nothing different from exactly what I'm doing. It's just somebody sitting down, giving their opinion on a band with their little personal insights. and the insights, unless you're, somebody who was with the band, are observations really, because we weren't there. I don't know. I think maybe she tries a little bit harder, maybe, to put it that way, to be a little bit nicer, because, like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's just another run of the mill from 1967 to 1997 biography on Fleetwood Mac. I would say there's nothing different about this one and whatever the last one was that I showed you, the Ed Winstonson or whatever. Well, okay, maybe there's a little bit more of a difference, but yeah, this one is a little bit more mainstream. Ed had written his for Winco, and it was a little bit more of a private publishing. This one has the full publishing of Citadel Press. She doesn't seem to be somebody who's especially, I don't know if she's moved on, but Leah, I think Furman, doesn't seem to be somebody who's especially focused on writing rock and roll biographies. She had written a book or two, and they were like on life after college, best business for young, the everything dating book, and then to write this one is just kind of left field as far as I'm concerned. So, possibly a big fan, which more power to her. I think that's fantastic. I bought it. I like it. It's one I actually might read after the Mick ones. This is maybe one I would revisit. But again, I think there's a few inaccuracies. I want to say it might even be birthday or something as small as that. I'm not saying it is. Just it seemed like there's a couple things that are just, with a Google search, you could do a little bit better. So there is that one. So no really good pictures or anything different that I can recall. Let's make sure I'm right here. Usually it's the case. There's nothing really different. Again, just somebody's, no. So, yeah, just another little piece. This one came out in 2004. So I'm not sure that it's inclusive of Say You Will, because it was probably written and coming out right at the time. This is a book by Kath Carroll. Yeah, it does just mention Say You Will, so it's probably just coming out at that time. And this one is Never Break the Chain, Fleetwood Mac and the Making of Rumors. So this one goes a tad bit more into rumors specifically. We've already had, right? I'm pretty sure we had already had Ken's book. So I think it was taken a little bit more from that. This person, however, does write, has written a couple more music-related books. One on Tom Waits and one on, she wrote for New Musical Express, pardon me. And if I can remember correctly, it's been a while since I've read this one. Yeah, there's a lot of Ken Callett's information, in here. So I think, again, another one written where, the one book has come out, they've read that one, they've read Mick's book, etc., and they just want to take pieces from that and just add their own spin. Maybe there's another magazine article, maybe there's a couple responses from people who, oh, look at that, a ticket in here. That's funny. That's not one of mine either. I wonder if I bought it like that. Probably. It says I bought it new. Hard to say. That's pretty funny, though. Or I had gotten the tickets and I was starting to read it. Maybe I didn't finish this one where it's at. The series of books has also books on Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, Brian Wilson, and Led Zeppelin. But those are not all by Kath Carroll. This one is, but I'm just saying there's like this series, the making of certain albums. But this one, again, is a little bit more focused on rumors. So it's not quite the full, from 1967. In the beginning, there's, the blues band and everything like that. It's brought up, don't misconstrue, but it does try to focus a little bit more on rumors, and, maybe picks up and just maybe tries to evolve a little bit more on making of rumors. And again, from when Ken's book came out, of course, I put that back on my shelf. I think, I can't remember what year that, oh no, let's see. Ken's book, which I have here, did not come out to 2012, so my error, I apologize. So this had not come out yet. So it was this person's dive into doing it. I swear I thought that book had come out way earlier. I'm so sorry. So yeah, then I really don't remember this. So that's kind of an unfair judgment on this book. It does just seem to me, though, that it's just a lot more newspaper articles or magazine articles that were out and around at the time of rumors, specifically getting that information together. Because it's not just by the title, but by the title obviously also, and just really trying to focus more on rumors than giving you the full history of early Fleetwood Mac, Buckingham Nicks, post rumors. So there are some mentions, like I said, when I looked up Say You Will to see if it went that far, the mentions are brief, probably not only because it was written and finished at that, just before that album came out, but again, probably because they are just staying focused on the making of rumors. So they probably talked to Ken, who probably wasn't giving too much information because he was in the process of writing his own book. And, it looks like they talked to Brian Kane, some other people. So, yeah, I'm going to say that this one is just a little bit more, again, fan point of view, but focused on one album instead of giving you the whole thing. So again, if you want to go out and just try and find something more, then, like these two might be great companion pieces. Probably be interesting, again, if I went into it, which maybe I'll do at the end of the videos, is like, after recapping all these books, be like, you should maybe read this one and then this one because they're kind of companion pieces. Be interesting, or read this one first and then go back and see what this lady had to say and kind of mash those up. Might be kind of interesting. Read Mick's first book with this one that came out in 2014. Read, any other Fleetwood Mac book and then bring this one back out. It just might be kind of a fun thing to not read them in the order that they were published, but in companion pieces. Like this book would seem more like the Ken book, etc. So that would be next one. After that, we have one that, funny enough, a video I made the other day had a comment, and somebody had mentioned this book, which was awful. I apologize to the author. Again, no different, from what I'm doing, which could also be construed as awful, which is totally fine. This one is very one side. I don't know. It didn't seem very supportive. It didn't seem very fan friendly. And I thought that this person was. It seemed to me like I've read more about this person. They were or are a pretty big fan. It just seemed to be very, very lifeless, is maybe a good word. Just written with no real depth on anybody or care or, which is a person's style, So again, I'm not disrespecting that. I'm not certainly, I bought the book. I actually think I have it hardbound somewhere as well. I know I found one signed, at like Powell's or something like that. And I'm 99% sure I bought it. So that person had talked to, and I forgot my friend's photography is in here. Well, my once upon a time friend. I don't know if I'd say that anymore. Let's find out where those pictures are. Maybe that's where I got the impression the fan, because this person who had given their photos or given consent for their photos to be used was in talks with this person. So it seems to me like we had known that the book was coming out in advance, which is phenomenal. And I think it's really cool that she used my friend's photos, my at one point friend. It has all the context. It's so funny to me. I could be looking at this kind of stuff prior and like I said, and be more prepared, or like, have something written out, like a little script or something like that. But I also kind of think it's fun when I do just go through these like I do, which is how I like approaching stuff, and just kind of remember at the time what I read or what I thought about them at the time. I'm gonna kind of blot this person's name out here if I can. But this was a photograph taken by them, which is a really nice picture. So I think that's really cool. And, and it's funny because, and sorry to continue what I was saying, is that, because looking through this, there is interesting stuff that's in here that is more fan friendly, like, digging, like, adding her artwork, and somebody who's, talking about things like as I would, somebody who's just like a genuine big fan, and adding the stuff. But it just seemed to me like when I was reading it, it just seemed very dry and very not opinionated, because I don't recall anything like really mean or anything like that said about Stevie. Just very not super into, but at the very end, it's thank you, Stevie, for all that you do. It's been a pleasure writing a book chronicling your musical journey while paying tribute to your many accomplishments. So they're obviously a huge fan, but it just, I don't know, I didn't get a real big feeling out of it. That's all. But yeah, but it's loaded. There's some really great photos in here. But somebody had just written to me, and they had their opinion of the book, and and it just seemed kind of, and it seemed to me to do well. But yeah, I don't remember. What I will find at the very end of this book, however, is that there are endnotes, and then there are, where does it start here? Bibliography and credits, and that starts on page 195 and goes through page 206. So as you can see, the book is pretty thin. So over 10 pages of bibliography and credits would also indicate to me that this is just a lot pulled from interviews and magazines. Again, with the spin and insight of their own, which is beautiful. And you know what? I will, let's put this back on the list of things to reread too, because and I think I will do a video at the very end. It might be a little bit apart from when I do read everything else, but I think that's a good idea. What I had said about maybe reading this with the, making rumors. I would probably read this after I reread this piece of crap. Now, this one I'm straight up going to say, I hate this book. And you know what? And I don't care for the I don't care for it. And we're just going to put that one aside. But on that note, I will probably reread this one with that one, because this other person is not, certainly would not call a fan of the band, but was purportedly, with the band, and in a relationship with Lindsay and all that kind of stuff, and just has their own passive aggressive, toxic positivity kind of things to say. So I would probably read that one in tandem with this one, maybe, because this one does seem like it is a genuine fan. And I don't know why I just recall this one being just kind of, I don't want to say dull or cold, because those aren't the words, but those are the words that come to my brain. So I probably want to reread this one to see if that's, why I felt that maybe at the time. But that other book, I just don't even want to talk about that book. So we're going to go straight into Ken's book for 2012, which, got brought up a second ago. And this one, again, I think I had mentioned Mick's book, and then that discography book, and then probably this one would be, again, one of my favorites. Now, the content and the opinions and some of the stories told in this book, again, I'm not on board with. I think that everybody, again, will remember stories differently. And I'm not just talking the bad stuff. I'm talking just certain things that just, I don't know. I think, when you go to write a book, especially, I don't know. I guess you're publishing it for money, to earn money. You want it to sell. You want to say certain things. You want to, um, maybe just add stuff to kind of elaborate it, make it a little bit more or something. I mean, I don't know. Or just some things were said, and I just, from sources that I have, which are nothing. I'm nobody. I have no connection with the band, but I do have these wee little bits of things in my collection, and over the years, things that I put together that I find interesting that kind of don't always line up with them. And one thing, I don't know if I brought it up before, but I have a diary of a tour manager that was with Fleetwood Mac for a short time. And it's something that I had actually wanted to work on and get published one time. I wanted to try and speak to some people who knew that person. And I'll probably also make a video on this, so I don't want to go too far into it. But some of the things that get said in that thing, which isn't full of gossip and full of, juicy moments. There's some details and such like that, but I interpret words, in a certain way. Everybody interprets, and when they read a paragraph or a sentence or something like that, of course, they're going to take things differently. But some of the words and some of the instances that this particular person had been in, coinciding with things that I've read in other books that have been published, um, just don't click to me. They just don't make sense. Like you would read something and you'd be like, well, that's a first person narrative in a journal, in a diary, basically, that nobody's ever going to see. So why would somebody write that if it weren't the truth, or it weren't, if that makes any sense? And so when they say what they say, and then I read a book that has some other comment on it, it just kind of makes me wonder, just what's the truth. Again, it interests me that people see things from different perspectives, and and just what gets said or put out there, just to what end, to what But this is really full of detail of the work that got put into it, the stories behind the songs, places they went, parties. It's a little self-indulgent, but they were there and it was the 70s, so you can't blame them for that. And funny enough, I had found some photos. Actually, I had some from that same person, that manager. There had been some uh, negatives in a box of stuff, and these were among them. And this is a lady named, this Ken, and a lady named Diane, who is mentioned in the book a lot. And I had posted those photos, and then that person went and put them everywhere. But I own the negatives to that, so I thought that was kind of cool. So I think Diane, right? Not Cheryl. It's not Cheryl, is it? Maybe Cheryl. Because now I'm seeing a picture. Anyway, I'm not sure. I'll have to go and look again. But yeah, that was kind of neat to have those pictures made and find out who that person was in them. But yeah, this book is probably going to be your second best book if you want, again, from somebody directly who's there, and a little bit more insight to the music making, not just about the band. Again, not just, the band started in 1967 up till then, that kind of thing. So this would probably be, third or fourth on my list of more accurate and wanting to read something that you'd want to seek out and add to your collection for Fleetwood Mac books. Another little weird piece of little fluff. This was something I found at the dollar store, of all places. And I would have gotten it from this alone. I would have gotten it from that alone for Kate Bush. There is the tiniest mention of Stevie in here, but I thought it was cool for $1, and it's in my book, so I'm just going to show you. But again, Susie's in here. As I've mentioned, I'm a big fan of her. Tori Amos, Kate Bush. There's a lot on Kate Bush in here. Joan Jett. But of course, when it comes to 70s fashion, there's a tiny little comment about Stevie and a little picture. Lots about Debbie, though, which is really neat. And you can't beat something at the dollar store, right? Just a fluke. I happened to come across it, and I was like, yeah. So that was just a happy luck. Not a book I would seek out or anything like that. Just funny, just among my stuff. But it has a whole bunch of icons of music and movies too. There's a lot of actresses and models and stuff like that, but lots of music stars in there. So that one is pretty neat. Next, we're going to get into probably. I think I'll end it with Mick's book, which this was really cool. I got to meet him for a umpteenth time. I can't even tell you. This book came out in 2014. So again, we're a little ahead of ourselves. I got it signed, which is really cool. I went all the way to Washington, from Oregon to Washington, and there was this really cool ticket that came with it. Just kind of cool. And this one I'm needing to reread. I'm not even sure I ever finished this one the first time around. I'm not gonna lie. But what I'm really been into reading the first one, which I am almost done with it. And then I really want to read the second one because I know that Mick updates a lot of stuff that was said and done, and of course times have changed. It's 2014, so they've had another several years together after Say You Will, and Chris coming and going. I think by this time Chris had already come back again. So I'm going to put this again up there with if I had done Mick's book, the discography one, and then I put Ken's book. So again, we're talking 4-ish books maybe that I would definitely recommend getting. Yeah, so this is definitely one of them. And again, this would go in hand in hand, tandem, with this one. So I think they would definitely you would want to read them together at some point. So I kind of dawdled on that one. I didn't mean to. I just kind of got off on that, and then I didn't really want to be negative, and I don't mean to be on a couple things. That is not my intent. That is not my way, my nature. And if I have nothing nice to say, I try to say nothing at all. But it's in the collection. I keep it, certain book. And, I think more than not apologizing, but for saying what I'm saying at the end here would be about this book, not about the other one. I mean what I say about that one, and I just don't even really count it. I keep it because there's pictures inside, and it is a book on Fleetwood Mac. But yeah, I just it just has no place in the storyline of Fleetwood Mac as far as I'm concerned. But this one I really think deserves another read, and I just kind of want to get back to why I felt. I just kind of feel vague. Is that a good word? Or I still don't get there's something missing in this one, and I just can't recall what it was. But yeah, again, it strikes me as probably the most prominent fan written, I would say, that made was released by a bigger publisher, and reached a larger audience than say Ed's book did, and probably deserves a little bit more time and credit as to why I have an opinion, positive or not necessarily negative, bad, but just do or don't get it. So I would probably want to read that one next. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I'll be back next time with I'm going to start another segment of some stuff, but I still have quite a bit of books to go. So I'll be back with those, and I'll try and be a little bit more concise and not as spacey as I was on this video. I do apologize. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope everybody has a great night. We'll see you next time. Bye.